I always knew I was different, not in the way that made someone special, but in the way that made them invisible. In my family's house, love was abundant, but only for the ones who belonged. I watched my siblings bask in affection, their laughter filling the rooms, their names spoken with warmth. But me? I was a shadow. If I spoke, my voice barely registered. If I reached out, my hands found only emptiness. I told myself it didn't matter. I convinced myself I could endure it. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. The morning light crept through my window, soft and golden, casting a deceptive illusion of peace. For a moment, I believed in it. And then I saw the letter. It sat on my nightstand, waiting like a sentence already passed. My heart pounded as I picked it up, unfolding the crisp paper with trembling fingers. The words were short, sharp, and final. Pack your things and leave. You are not our daughter. No explanation, no farewell. Just rejection, clean, brutal, undeniable. I read it over and over, my mind struggling to process it. Was this a mistake? A cruel joke? But there was no misunderstanding. The people who were supposed to love me, the ones who had raised me, had just cast me aside as if I were nothing. My chest tightened, my breath came in shallow gasps. I waited for something, an apology, an explanation, a voice calling me downstairs to say it wasn't real. But the house was silent. I packed without thinking, my hands moving on their own. A few clothes, some books, things that felt like mine, though I suddenly wasn't sure anymore. Each item I placed in my bag carried a question. Where would I wear this? Where would I sleep tonight? Who would care if I disappeared? The walls around me, once suffocating, now felt endless, like I was dissolving into the nothingness they had assigned me. And then, before I could talk myself out of it, I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. No one stopped me. No one called my name. I was alone. The air outside felt different, thinner, colder, as if the world itself had shifted the moment I crossed that threshold. My bag hung heavy on my shoulder, but not nearly as heavy as the weight in my chest. I stood there for a second, waiting. For what? I didn't know. Maybe for the door to swing open, for someone to rush out and stop me. Maybe for a voice, my mother's, my father's, telling me this was all some cruel mistake. But nothing happened. The house remained still, indifferent, just like them. I turned and walked, my footsteps echoing in the quiet morning. Every step felt unnatural, like I was moving in someone else's body. My mind raced, but I kept walking. Where was I supposed to go? I had no answers, no plan. All I had was the sound of my own breathing and the hollow ache in my chest. The neighborhood felt foreign now, so familiar, yet suddenly unwelcoming. I passed houses where families were waking up, the scent of breakfast drifting through open windows. Somewhere, a mother was brushing her daughter's hair, a father was telling his son to tie his shoelaces. I had never realized how much those small things mattered. A deep chill ran through me, but it wasn't from the morning air. It was from the realization sinking in. I have no one. The world had never seemed so vast, so cruelly indifferent. I pulled my bag closer to me, as if it could somehow shield me from the loneliness clawing at my skin. I needed to think. I needed to keep moving. But my feet felt rooted in place, my mind trapped in the finality of that letter. Then, a car door slammed somewhere down the street, jerking me back to reality. No time to break down. No time to feel sorry for myself. I wiped at my face, not even realizing I had been crying. I had no home. No safety, but I was still standing, and if no one was coming to save me, I would have to save myself. I kept walking. I didn't know where I was going, but stopping wasn't an option. My legs ached, my shoulders burned under the weight of my bag, but I forced myself forward. One step, then another. The streets I had known my whole life now felt like a foreign land, stripped of familiarity, stripped of warmth. I had nowhere to go, and yet I couldn't turn back. There was nothing left for me in that house, only silence, only absence. I thought of the past, of all the times I had tried to earn their love. The good grades, the quiet obedience, The desperate attempts to be noticed. Had they ever truly seen me? Had I ever been their daughter? Or had I simply been there? A presence they tolerated until they no longer felt the need to? My chest tightened, but I swallowed the pain down. I had spent my whole life trying to be enough for them. And now, it was too late. I would never be enough for them. But maybe, just maybe, I could be enough for myself. The city opened up ahead of me, unfamiliar streets stretching in every direction. The world was moving, indifferent to my existence. Cars passed, people hurried along sidewalks, laughter and conversations filled the air. Life continued, even as mine had just been shattered. A part of me wanted to scream, to grab someone and tell them what had happened. Look at me, see me, tell me I matter. But no one looked, no one saw. I was just another girl with a bag slung over her shoulder, just another invisible life drifting through the cracks. Then, as if on instinct, I lifted my chin and squared my shoulders. I had no home, no family, no plan. But I was still here, and that had to mean something. I had spent my whole life feeling small. Now, for the first time, I had the chance to find out who I really was, who I could become, without them, without their approval, without their love. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most terrifying and freeing thing of all. Hunger is a strange thing. At first, it gnaws at you, sharp and insistent, demanding attention like a fire spreading through your stomach. But after a while, it dulls into something else, something deeper. A quiet, hollow ache that settles into your bones, making even the air feel heavy. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. My last few dollars had gone to a bottle of water and a stale sandwich that barely lasted 5 bites. Now I was running on nothing but sheer will, and even that was starting to fade. I wandered the streets, searching for anything, a place to rest, a job, a sign that I wasn't completely invisible. The city was both too big and too small, filled with people who never saw me. I passed restaurants where families sat together, laughing over steaming plates of food. I pressed my hands into my pockets, curling my fingers into fists to stop them from shaking. I had never realized how much I took for granted. Hot meals, a bed, the simple security of knowing where I belonged. Now, I had none of it. A cold wind whipped through my jacket, sending a violent shiver down my spine. I needed a plan. I needed something, anything, to keep myself from falling apart. I spotted a help wanted sign in the window of a small diner. My legs ached as I forced myself inside, the smell of coffee and frying bacon almost dizzying after days of emptiness. I stepped up to the counter, heart pounding, willing myself to look stronger than I felt. The woman behind the counter barely glanced at me. "You got experience?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron. My throat was dry, my voice weak, but I nodded. Yes. It wasn't a lie, not really. I had helped out in the kitchen at home. I knew how to work hard. And right now I would do anything, for a chance. The woman eyed me for a moment, her lips pressing into a thin line. She didn't believe me. I could see it in the way her gaze flickered over my worn-out clothes, my hollow cheeks. But maybe she saw something else too. Desperation, determination, a girl on the edge of breaking but refusing to shatter. With a sigh, she tossed a notepad onto the counter. "Fine, trial shift. If you screw up, you're out." Relief hit me so hard I almost staggered. I grabbed the notepad with both hands, nodding quickly. "I won't," I whispered, though my voice felt small. I wouldn't fail. I couldn't fail. The hours blurred together. I took orders, cleared tables, scrubbed dishes until my fingers ached. My body screamed in protest, but I ignored it. This wasn't just a job, it was survival. And despite the exhaustion, despite the hunger still gnawing at my insides, there was something grounding about it. For the first time in days, I wasn't wandering aimlessly. I wasn't waiting for something to happen to me. I was doing something. As the diner emptied out, I wiped down the last table, my hands raw from the rough cloth. The woman, her name was Ruth, I had learned, leaned against the counter, watching me. "Come back tomorrow," she said finally. "I'll see what I can pay you." It wasn't much. It wasn't stability. but it was something. I nodded, swallowing hard. Thank you, I said, meaning it more than I ever had before. Ruth only shrugged, but there was something softer in her eyes now. I stepped out into the cold night, my breath curling in the air. My feet still ached, my stomach still clenched with hunger, but for the first time since I walked out of that house, I felt something else. A flicker of hope. Small, fragile, but there. I spent that night curled up in the back alley behind the diner, my jacket barely enough to keep the cold from sinking into my skin. The ground was hard, the air sharp, but I had survived worse. I pulled my bag close, resting my head against it like a pillow, and stared up at the sky. The city lights drowned out most of the stars, leaving only a few visible, flickering faintly against the darkness. I wondered if my family had even noticed I was gone. Had they sat down for dinner without a second thought? Had my room already been emptied, my things discarded like I never existed? The questions clawed at me, but I refused to let them break me. I was still here. I had worked, earned something, even if it was just another chance. That had to mean something. Tomorrow I would go back. I would do better. I would prove, to Ruth, to myself, that I wasn't just some lost girl on the streets. I could survive this. I would survive this. The next morning came too soon. My body ached as I sat up, stretching out stiff limbs, but I didn't let myself slow down. I ran my fingers through my tangled hair, wiped the sleep from my face, and forced myself to look presentable. The city was already awake, cars rushing past, people moving with purpose. I wanted that. Purpose. Stability. A life that was mine. I stepped into the diner again, bracing myself for another day of exhaustion. Ruth barely acknowledged me, just jerked her head toward the tables. I got to work without a word. The hours passed in a blur. Orders, trays, dishes, cleaning. It was relentless, but I welcomed it. Every plate I carried, every spill I wiped up, every tip I tucked into my pocket was a reminder that I was still standing, that I wasn't going to disappear. As I stepped out that evening, the few crumpled bills in my hand felt heavier than they should have. Not much, but enough for a meal, maybe even a bed for the night. It wasn't a home, but it was something. And for now, something was enough. Years passed, slowly at first, then all at once. The girl who had once stood trembling outside her childhood home had become someone else entirely. I had worked my way through exhaustion, through loneliness, through nights where hunger felt like a living thing inside me. And yet, I had survived. More than that, I had built something. A career. A home. A life I could finally call my own. My apartment wasn't extravagant, but it was mine. The soft hum of the city below, the warmth of a cup of coffee in my hands, the quiet pride of knowing every single thing in this space had been earned, not given. It was enough. No, it was more than enough. For the first time in my life, I belonged somewhere. I didn't need them. I didn't need anyone. And then the phone rang. I almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar, and I had long since stopped expecting calls from ghosts. But something, instinct, fate, maybe just morbid curiosity, made me press accept. The moment I heard the voice on the other end, my stomach turned to ice. It was them, my parents, the people who had thrown me away like I was nothing. I gripped the phone tighter, my pulse roaring in my ears. Lucy? The voice was weaker than I remembered, desperate. Please, we need your help. For a long moment, I said nothing. I just sat there, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles ached. I should have hung up. I wanted to hang up, but I didn't. Instead, I listened, to the shaky breath on the other end, the way my mother's voice trembled in a way it never had before. She hesitated, then exhaled sharply, as if choking on the words. We're in trouble, Lucy. The irony of it nearly made me laugh. Now they wanted to talk? Now, after years of silence, after forcing me into the kind of suffering they had never once cared to know, they needed me. I leaned back against my chair, running my fingers along the edge of my desk, trying to ground myself. Why are you calling me? My voice was steady, detached, like I was speaking to a stranger. There was a pause, a heavy one. And then my father, who had once written me off like I was nothing, spoke. We lost everything. His voice was rough, defeated. The business, the house, and your mother's sick. He swallowed hard. We have nowhere else to turn. Something sharp twisted inside me, but I didn't let it show. Not in my voice, not in the way I sat perfectly still, staring at the empty wall in front of me. For years, I had dreamed of this moment. I had imagined them begging, desperate, forced to understand even a fraction of the pain they had inflicted on me. But now that it was happening, it didn't feel satisfying. It didn't feel like justice. It felt hollow. I closed my eyes for a second, exhaling slowly. You had somewhere to turn, I said quietly. A long time ago. And you turned away. Silence. A long, stretching silence, thick with things unsaid. I could hear my mother's breath catch, like she was trying to find the right words. But what could she possibly say? That they were sorry? That they regretted it? That throwing me away had been a mistake? I didn't believe in fairy tales. There was no apology that could undo the past. No words that could erase the years of loneliness, the nights I had spent starving, the years I had fought to build myself from the ashes of their rejection. I know, my father finally said, his voice quieter now, almost brittle. And He exhaled, and for the first time in my life, I heard something like shame in his tone. We were wrong, Lucy. The words didn't hit the way I had once imagined they would. They weren't a victory, not really. Because what did it matter? Regret didn't change anything. They weren't calling because they had suddenly realized they loved me. They were calling because they were desperate. And if they still had their money, their security, their comfortable lives, I knew without a doubt that I would still be nothing to them. I could have hung up. I could have let them drown in the mess they had created, let them suffer like they had let me suffer. But instead, a slow, chilling thought settled over me. There was something more powerful than revenge, something they would never expect. I straightened, my grip on the phone loosening. I'll help you, I said, my voice calm, even. But not the way you think. Another beat of silence. What do you mean? My mother whispered. I smiled, though there was no joy in it. You'll see. The first time I saw them again, they barely recognized me. I had arranged to meet them at a small cafe in the city, a place far from the polished restaurants they were once accustomed to. When I walked in, I spotted them instantly. Two figures hunched over a table, aged beyond their years. My father, once so proud, so untouchable, stared at his hands as if they held the weight of the world. My mother, always so meticulously put together, looked tired, her clothes slightly wrinkled, her fingers gripping the edge of her cup like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. They didn't notice me at first, but when I stepped closer, when I pulled out the chair across from them, my mother lifted her head. Her eyes widened, and for a fleeting second, I saw something almost like disbelief. I wondered what she saw when she looked at me now. The quiet, timid girl they had abandoned no longer existed. The woman sitting before them was someone else entirely, someone they could no longer break. Lucy? She whispered, as if the name itself was foreign to her tongue. I folded my hands on the table and met their gaze evenly. You needed me, I said, my voice steady. So here I am. My father cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. He looked at me like a puzzle he couldn't solve, like he was searching for the girl he had once so easily discarded. But she was gone. And the silence between us stretched, thick with everything we would never say. We appreciate you meeting us, he said finally, but the words sounded unnatural, forced. We wouldn't have reached out if we had any other choice. Any other choice. That was the truth, wasn't it? I wasn't their daughter. I was their last resort. I tilted my head, watching them carefully. Tell me what you need. My voice was calm, almost indifferent. My mother hesitated, then reached for my hand, but I pulled away before she could touch me. A flicker of pain crossed her face, but I didn't care. She had let me walk out of her house with nothing. She didn't get to pretend now. We've lost everything, she admitted, her voice tight. The business went under. The debts piled up. We had to sell the house. And your father? She glanced at him, her fingers twisting together. His health isn't good. I looked at my father then, really looked at him. He did seem smaller somehow, his skin paler, his shoulders hunched in a way I had never seen before. There was no arrogance left in him, no power, just a tired, broken man who had once made me feel like I was nothing. I let the weight of their situation settle between us. I wanted them to feel it, to understand that for the first time in their lives, they were powerless. That I, the daughter they had abandoned, was the one holding all the cards now. And then I did the unthinkable. I smiled. I'll help you, I said softly. But you're going to do it on my terms. They didn't answer right away. My father stared at me, suspicion flickering in his tired eyes. My mother's lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to protest but didn't dare. They had expected one of two things, either rejection or resentment. But kindness? That was something they didn't know how to fight. I leaned back, letting them sit with the weight of my words. I'll help you find a place. I'll make sure you have what you need, but I won't give you back what you lost. I folded my hands neatly on the table, my voice calm, almost detached. You don't get to live the life you once had. You don't get comfort or luxury. You get survival. The way I had to. My mother swallowed hard. Lucy, I held up a hand, silencing her. No explanations, no apologies. You didn't care if I lived or died, but I won't let you die either. That would be too easy. You're going to wake up every day and see what you lost. You're going to feel it, not just in the empty bank accounts or the lack of security, but in the way I stand before you now, whole, successful, untouched by the pain you thought would break me. My father let out a slow breath, his shoulders slumping. My mother looked away, her fingers trembling slightly against the rim of her cup. For the first time, I saw it. Realization. They had expected hate, expected me to spit venom at them, to turn my back the way they once had. But instead, I had given them something worse. A kindness they didn't deserve. A reminder that I had won, not by becoming them, but by becoming more. I stood, sliding my chair back with deliberate ease. I'll be in touch with the details, I said simply. Don't call me again. Then I turned and walked out, stepping into the crisp evening air, feeling lighter than I ever had before. They had lost everything. But I had won. The world outside felt different. The same city lights flickered, the same distant hum of traffic filled the air, but something inside me had shifted. Lighter, freer. For years I had carried their absence like a wound that never healed, an ache that sat beneath my skin no matter how much I accomplished. And now they were the ones carrying the weight. I walked without direction, letting the night swallow me whole, breathing in air that suddenly felt sharper, fresher. I thought of their faces. My father, hollowed out by regret. My mother, too proud to beg but too broken to fight. They had been powerful once. They had held my fate in their hands and tossed it away like a mistake. And yet, here we were. They had needed me. And I had given them nothing but mercy. But the most satisfying part wasn't their suffering. It was the fact that I didn't need them anymore. Not their approval, not their love, not their apologies. I had spent so many years thinking that if they ever regretted what they did, it would somehow fix something in me. But it hadn't, because I wasn't broken anymore. I stopped at a street corner, letting the city rush past me. A couple walked by, laughing softly, arms intertwined. A man held his daughter's hand, guiding her carefully across the road. Life moved on. Life had always moved on. And for the first time, I was ready to move with it. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No tossing, no waking up gasping for air, no dreams of voices calling me back to a home that never wanted me. When I opened my eyes the next morning, there was no lingering ache in my chest, no phantom pain from wounds that had long since closed. I had spent years carrying them with me, every cruel word, every act of neglect, every moment I had longed for love that never came. But now, they were nothing more than a story I had outgrown. I got up, stretched, and made coffee, savoring the quiet hum of my apartment. The space was small but filled with warmth, books stacked on shelves, soft light filtering through sheer curtains, the faint scent of vanilla from the candle I had forgotten to blow out the night before. This was my home, built from nothing, shaped by my own hands. And it was enough. My phone buzzed on the counter. For a split second, my stomach tightened, old instincts whispering warnings of bad news. But when I picked it up, it wasn't them. It was a friend from work, asking about dinner plans. That was my life now. Not a girl waiting for a family that never loved her, not a child begging for scraps of affection, but a woman who had created something of her own, relationships that mattered, people who chose to be in her life not out of obligation, but because they wanted to be. I smiled, taking a slow sip of coffee. Maybe my parents would call again. Maybe they wouldn't. It didn't matter. They were no longer a part of the world I had built for myself. And for the first time, I felt what I had been searching for all along. Peace. Days passed, then weeks, and they didn't call again. Maybe they knew better. Maybe they understood, deep down, that whatever thread had once tied us together had been severed the day they let me walk out of their house with nothing. Or maybe they were too ashamed to face me again, too aware of how deeply they had failed. Either way, their silence no longer felt like a wound. It felt like freedom. One afternoon, as I walked through the city, I passed by a park. A little girl sat on a bench with her mother, swinging her legs as she ate an ice cream cone. The mother wiped a smudge from her daughter's cheek, laughing as the girl wrinkled her nose. It was such a small thing, a moment of care, of love, of belonging. And yet, it was everything I had never had. For years, I had wondered what was wrong with me. Why I wasn't enough. Why I wasn't wanted. But standing there watching that mother hold her child close, I realized the truth. It was never about me, it was them. Their failure, their blindness, their inability to love the way a parent should. And I had spent so long trying to prove my worth to people who were never capable of seeing it. But I didn't need their validation anymore. I had built something greater. I had built myself. I turned away, walking forward without looking back. I had survived. I had thrived. And that was all the closure I would ever need.